Hey everyone, welcome to the first Whiskey Ring Podcast State of the Patreon update. It won't be super long, but there are a lot of updates to share that I think you'll enjoy. This update is going to take the place of this week's Under the Influencer, so I'll start there. Starting next week, so first week in August, Under the Influencer will be on a more regular release schedule. I was a bit ambitious at first with a weekly episode right out of the gate, I'll be honest about that. There is a lot of interest, and I've got about a dozen guests lined up right now, but I forgot something important. People are on vacation over the summer and aren't as available all the time, so there's a little backlog on that, but we'll have more guests, more friends coming to you soon. I promise these episodes will continue to be totally unedited and hopefully as fun for you to listen to as it is for me to record them. Under the Influencer episodes will still be available to patrons at the $5 and above tier, so if you're at the $1 tier or thinking about joining on the Patreon, consider the $5 tier to get full access. And the next update. So, speaking of Patreon, there are still 6 spots available at the $25 tier. So when I announced that tier a little while ago, I said there were only going to be 10 spots, and I'm holding to that. There will only ever be 10 spots at this level. At that tier, you not only get the weekly Under the Influencer episodes, but you also get monthly shipments of whatever I get to taste. So what does that mean? Well, I'm really fortunate to say that when distilleries and producers come on the show, I often get the chance to try their products. Some send samples, some send full-size boxes, full-size bottles, that is. And really, I'm grateful for anything sent. To try these products is really, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I want to share that. So what better way to spread the word about these guests and their products than to share? $25 patrons get monthly shipments of samples from guests on that month's podcasts. For example, in July, those first few $25 patrons, thank you to Don, Connor, Ken. Those first few patrons got a box containing the Village Garage lineup, the Santa Fe Spirits and Colkegan Single Malt lineup, multiple barrel releases, including a couple of bourbon batches and the New Year release, Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond, and one or two more that I can't remember at the moment. The first month I did kind of go hog wild, sending 15 samples. Most months will be closer to 10 to 12, but never less than that. If there isn't enough to share from a guest, or if those particular guests aren't producers or distilleries for that month, it'll be replaced by something from my own collection that either adds to the conversation, is maybe from that producer or a different producer that's related in some way. So either way, it'll be 10 to 12 minimum every month. As long as you sign up on or before the 15th of that month, you'll get that month's shipment. So if you want August shipment, sign up before or on August 15th. You can go ahead and sign up at patreon.com/whiskeyinmyweddingring. You can click through to Patreon through the website, or any of the last, let's say, 15 to 20 episodes show notes as well. Make sure, while you're there, to also grab Whiskey Ring Podcast or Whiskey in My Wedding Ring Glencairns and rocks glasses from the website, from which you can sip your new samples. I always try things from the Glencairn to rate them and to do tasting notes, but most of the time I am enjoying things in a rocks glass. Next, quick update on sponsors. So if you're a longtime listener, and thank you, you know who you are, you know that the first podcast sponsor was Cairncraft, followed shortly by Mash and Grape. While I still use Cairncraft Glencairn carriers and caps pretty much every day, and I'm still a Mash and Grape member, I think a little change is good for any podcast as it grows, and so we're bringing on new sponsors. A few months ago, those first 2 sponsors gave way to Impex Beverages, one of my favorite importers with some of my favorite independent bottlers under their umbrella, including Signatory, Adelphi Selection, the Impex Collection, and others. Impex is remaining a sponsor of the Whiskey Ring Podcast, with a new sponsor joining them. And I'm thrilled to announce that as of August 17th, really as of today, but with the first sponsored episode being August 17th, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society is joining as the Whiskey Ring Podcast's newest sponsor. Whiskey Ring listeners will get a 20% discount on annual memberships, keep an eye out for that first sponsored episode. Again, the one dropping on August 17th for the code. And before you think this will be all about Scotch, and believe me, I thought about this, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society has been bottling more and more American and non-Scotch whiskey in the past few years, including a bottle of corn whiskey from the largest family-owned distillery in the U.S. And if you're thinking the right one, yes, that distillery. And that was a bottle that I got myself, but will be included in a future month's package of samples for those $25 supporters. As more come in, as I get to taste more things, those will also be added. But I really want to make clear that Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, in addition to just being an incredible independent bottler, is also not just Scotch anymore. They're doing, of course, Scotch single malts. They're doing their own blends. They're doing grain whiskeys. They're doing whiskeys from Taiwan, Israel, Wales, England, Ireland, and, of course, the U.S. now. So these are things that you're going to watch out for, you're going to want to watch out for, and having that membership is the only way to get those bottles. So keep an eye out for that. My last update is about events. So I got to say, I mean, you all made the Advent in July calendar a huge success, and we're definitely going to be doing more sample sets like that in the future. Won't be called Advent because besides the obvious connotation there, want to make it a little more inclusive and make it more about the samples than anything else. That being said, if you're in the Whiskey Ringers Facebook group, which is free to join, you just need to answer a couple questions. You'll know that this calendar included, among other things, a 1970s Beam decanter, my own Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Infinity bottle of all 29 batches from the pre-gift shop Barrel Proof to the recent A122, cast strength sorghum whiskey, that was a single cast pick, and a cast strength American single malt. This is along with some new expressions of your favorite rye and bourbons from known distilleries, from up and coming distilleries. You know, it was fun. It threw a lot of people off, and it was just fun to see people's notes. But overall, it was just fun to do, to try and guess what was coming each day, and have a couple of words about why that was included. So, in addition to those blind sample sets, I'm also working on tasting events or tasting sets on topics like American single malt, cask finishing, aged rums is one I really want to get into with people, and probably the most requested so far, peat. That's right, that thing that you think you can't stand, that you think smoke and peat are the same thing. I promise you, you're going to want to keep an eye out for those peat-focused events. I will change your mind. I'm not going to guarantee you're going to like peat. I'm not going to do that because not everyone does. But I promise you, you will learn more about it, and you'll get to taste the difference between a Highland peat, Isla peat, Orkney peat, American peat, Indiana peat, you know, all sorts of things that will make you just experience things. And ultimately, that's what I want to do, is just have you experience things. If you want to hear more about my thinking on that last one in particular about peat, sign up at that $5 or above level and listen to my Under the Influencer episode with Bill Robarge, aka Beer Lovers of Wisconsin, because we got into that topic towards, I think, the middle end of our episode, because Bill's someone who thought he'd never liked peat, and I've made it my mission not to prove him wrong, but at least to show him that it can be something that's enjoyable. As always, if there are events, tastings, sample sets, and more that you want to see happen, just let me know. I'm also now available for private tastings. If your company or group of friends is interested in learning and experiencing some spirits, just send me a DM or a PM, and let's get something set up. All right, so before signing off, just one more thing. A reminder that I'll be heading down to Kentucky and Tennessee in just a month, under a month at this point. I'm going to be there from August 21st through the 27th, based in Louisville the first 2 days, Bardstown the 3rd, 4th day, so August 23rd and 24th, and then Nashville, Shelbyville, and Lynchburg the last 2 days. If you're in the area or in any of those areas and want to meet up, hit me up. Let's make it happen. I'll have a car, and let's do it. I want to see people that I've met, people I haven't met. You'll be able to join me on visits to distilleries, to bars, to experiences. It's just going to be a lot of fun. All right. That was a lot. I think that's everything for now. I'm sure there's something I missed, so comment or PM me if I did. As always, you guys and girls and everyone in between who are listening, you're the ones who make the podcast and the site worth continuing. Thank you again for supporting the podcast and the site. Thanks for reading reviews and sharing them. Thanks for listening to podcast episodes. Thanks for supporting on Patreon. And finally, remember the only 2 rules in my whiskey universe. Drink what you like and drink it how you like it. Cheers.